Hi everyone, my name is Junon. I have a health science background, and I'm the author of the book Truth and Empathy: How to Find Your Soulmate. And I'll put a link to the book below. This video is the MBTI personality type assessment of Chris Rock. But before we dive into this topic, I would like to underline something about my book. It is written from a health science point of view, so we'll be looking at the anatomy, physiology, brain dominance, neurotransmitters, and so forth of the 16 MBTI personality types. And based on this information, you can determine your own type, and then you can determine who's the best romantic partner for you long term, because I do advocate that like attract like. So let's go back to the topic at hand. So when we look at the 16 MBTI personality types, they can be grouped into four main ones. The first ones are sensor judgers, the second sensor perceivers, the third intuitive thinkers, and the last one intuitive feelers. To me, Chris Rock is a sensor perceiver, and I will explain why. I have some notes on screen so I don't miss anything. Christopher Julius Rock is an American stand-up comedian, actor, and filmmaker. He's also ranked number 5 on the Rolling Stones list of the 50 best stand-up comics of all time. Rock's subject matter typically involves family, politics, romance, music, celebrities, and race relations in the United States. He was born on February the 7th, 1965, so he's now 58 years old. Rock is the eldest of his parents' 7 children, so 6 boys and 1 girl, and he had an older paternal half-brother who died after suffering from alcoholism. His father died in 1988 after an ulcer surgery, so he was rather young, in his 20s when that happened, and that was, had an impact on him. Rock was bused to schools in predominantly white neighborhoods of Brooklyn, where he endured bullying and beatings from white students. As he grew older, the bullying worsened, and Rock's parents pulled him out of the James Madison High School. He dropped out of high school altogether when he was about 16 years old, but he later earned a general educational development, so the GED. Rock then worked various jobs at fast food restaurants. After years working as a stand-up comedian and appearing in minor film roles, including Beverly Hills Cop Part 2, Rock gained prominence as a cast member on the NBC sketch comedy series Saturday Night Live from 1990 to 1993. He then was cast in starring roles such as in Nurse Betty, Down to Earth, and Pootie Tang. He is known for his appearances in television, including Louie, a comedian in Cars Getting Coffee, and Fargo. He made his Broadway theater debut in 2011. He hosted the Academy Awards twice and was involved in an incident with Will Smith on stage in 2022. He has received multiple accolades, including 3 Grammy Awards for Best Comedy Album and 4 Primetime Emmy Awards, as well as a Golden Globe Award nomination. Rock married Malak Compton Rock in 1996, and they have 2 daughters together. In December 2014, Rock filed for divorce from Compton Rock. Rock admitted to infidelity in his marriage, as well as struggling with the pornography addiction. The divorce was finalized in 2016. In 2022, it was reported that Rock has started dating actress, screenwriter, and director Lake Bell. He has campaigned against the racial profiling of African Americans. In 2019, Rock, along with several other celebrities, invested in a funding round for a California cannabis brand. He is known to be a dedicated cannabis consumer. In 2020, Rock said that he was diagnosed with a nonverbal learning disorder, a neurological condition that makes it difficult for him to understand nonverbal social cues. His current net worth is $60 million. if we look at Chris Rock's life, it is typical of censor perceivers. In other words, he was struggling in school in a sense that censor perceivers, because these are people who, in terms of the theme of their life, it is freedom and movement. If they're in a situation where it's too regimented, too many rules, or the fact that they cannot be like themselves, because these are people, again, they are hard workers, but it has to do with something that they are passionate about. So if, let's say, something doesn't hold their attention, it's very difficult for them to work hard long term in that particular on that particular project. So if we look at Chris Rock's history, it's not surprising that he struggled in school, in the sense that he was a black child who went to an all white school, elementary and high school, and the fact that also, in terms of, if you look at his parents, he had really poor dental aesthetics, so that might not have helped. The era as well, we're looking at the 70s, early 80s, where racism was more intense in the United States. So all this, and the fact that he came from a poor neighborhood, all this made it more difficult. And he did admit that he suffered from a learning sort of disability. He was diagnosed with a non-verbal learning disorder, so not able to read cues in terms of when people talk, and be able to sort of understand maybe context. That really made it harder for him. So being a censor perceiver, being bullied, being black, it was at a certain era, having an appearance that was not maybe that appealing. So all this made it more difficult. And also, Chris Rock has a small stature, so he's not like a big guy or man even as an adult. So when he was younger, it was easier for people to pick on him because he looked more vulnerable. So all this is that it's not surprising that he dropped out of school at an early age. But that's what the thing is, that when it comes to censor perceivers, these are people who are risk takers. So after obviously trying different maybe jobs, he realized he had a talent for stand-up comedy, and he was naturally talented. And that's what I find interesting with censor perceivers, is that compared to, let's say, other personality types who probably need more training, they're not like that. They learn on the job, and they are very versatile as well, in terms of they can do different things. And also, when it comes to censor perceivers, is that they are willing to take the risk of not having a stable job, and also invest themselves 100% into whatever they're passionate about. That although he left high school when he was in the 10th grade, it didn't take long for him, after obviously testing different types of job, to find his passion. So by the time he was in the early 20s, he was on Saturday Night Live, which is actually pretty amazing when you think about where he came from. And so, in other words, I would say that yes, he really fits the censor perceiver personality type that way. Now, whether or not Chris Rock is a feminine versus masculine energy, I would say that he's most likely a left brain dominant, in the sense that even when he talks about this bullying, years, I mean, the way he was able to handle it, someone who is right brain dominant would be more affected, because a person who is more empathic tends to be more sensitive to how people react to them, and even in terms of the type of humor that he uses. So you'll see that people who are censor perceivers and who are the thinker type tend to be really good when it comes to this type of humor, because they're looking at the internal logic of any situation. So if you look at their function stack, they have introverted thinking either as their first or second function. And so, in other words, when you look at comedy, it has to do with be able to look at what appears to be by contrast as to what actually is. So, in other words, a person has to be very logical to be able to do that. And I find that people who are thinkers tend to be better comedians, stand-up comedians, than feelers that way. And also, when you look at the type of humor that he has, is that he doesn't mind offending his audience. Actually, I was reading that, I was watching a video, it was saying that if he feels like no one is actually reacting in a negative way, he feels that he's not done his job, because he feels that his sort of role is to provoke discussion, is to sort of like show where people are not truthful, where people are not forthcoming with what they really think and who they really are. So you won't see that with a person who's a feeler. A feeler tends to want to not offend others, whereas a thinker doesn't mind that. So again, that's why I would say that based on the type of comedy that he makes, his commentary about society and so forth, he probably is more left brain dominant than right brain dominant. Now whether or not Chris Rock is an extrovert or introvert, I would say that he's probably an extrovert, in the sense that if you're a stand-up comedian, it's only you and the mic, so you need to be comfortable with having the whole of the audience attention on you, and that is for like the whole show, and doing that for like weeks on end, and months. And he says that he feels energized by the interfacing of him with the audience, and he's the type of person also who tend to be rather sort of animated, so you'll see in terms of his facial expression and so forth. So I would say that Chris Rock is someone who probably feels energized by being in crowds, and also again having an audience during his performances, and it's only him who's receiving the positive and the negative reactions. So for all these reasons, I would say that Chris Rock is most likely an ESTP. The other point also you'll see when it comes to people who are sensor perceive in general is that there's the people who like new experience, who like things that are new and different, and again, the theme of their lives is freedom of movement. So you'll see that these are people who often will report having different types of addictions. So he did admit having a pornography addiction, and even in terms of like having to use cannabis, as to medicate himself. So you'll see that people who tend to have this restlessness feel that they need to use these type of substances to actually calm themselves down. The other point also is that because he is a sensor perceiver and most likely a thinker, in terms of his relation style, it is the masculine and spontaneous, which has to do with accuracy. So in other words, when you look at someone who's a stand-up comedian, what they want is to describe an actual or precise picture of who people really are. So again, that is more in line with someone who is a sensor perceiver, a thinker, and most likely in this case, because he's comfortable with being the top public, and also he feels energized being around people, he's most likely an extrovert. So let me know if you agree or disagree with this MBTI personality type assessment by commenting below. If you like this video, if you learned something, please click on the like button. Also remember to click on the notification bell to be notified of other videos I'm going to be making. Subscribe to my channel, and we will talk soon.